Hello everyone and welcome to Metro Matters. I'm Mary Sitt. As Houston's population grows, Metro is always reviewing its policies to make sure it gives smart service, matching the right resources to transit needs. METROLift is a transit service we offer for customers who can't use the local bus routes or rail due to a disability. Customers make a reservation online or by phone and get door-to-door service. But in 2013, METROLift had 700 no-shows or late cancellations per day. So starting June 1st, Metro is introducing a new METROLift no-show and late cancellation policy. Here to tell us more is Susie Edrington, Associate Research Scientist at Texas A&M Transportation Institute, who helped Metro research its METROLift policies. Thanks so much for being with us, Susie.
I'm happy to be here.
Tell me, what role did you play in helping Metro shape its policy?
Well, about a year ago, Metro approached the Texas A&M Transportation Institute to be involved in the METROLift Moving Forward project. And our role was to look at feedback, tools for gaining feedback from the public, and then also to analyze different METROLift policies and practices.
So I understand there are 9 major areas you discovered during getting this survey and feedback. What were some of those?
No-shows and late cancellations, on-time performance, on the curb-to-curb policy.
So it seems like the one that really jumped out at you with all the research was the no-shows and the late cancellation policies. What was happening in that area?
Last spring, Metro went out to conduct a series of 12 workshops, and the outcome of that was that about 60% of the participants stated that there was a need to have a stricter no-show policy and then also to add a late cancellation policy.
What percentage of total trips is that approximately?
It's about 14% of the total trips, combined late cancellations and no-shows. Yeah. And if you look at the research, the peer agencies show that no-show rates are typically between 1 and 7.5%, and Metro's is at the high end.
And that was because Metro's policy was so liberal?
It's lenient.
Very lenient, okay.
Yeah.
So now we're tightening it up in order to make it more efficient.
Yeah. And in fact, the peer agencies that we reviewed all had stricter no-show policies, and they all had a late cancellation policy, and Metro does not currently have a late cancellation policy.
No, the airlines are so strict. You know, you barely do anything. You hiccup and they charge you something, and Metro is really very lenient. But so we're refining the policy, but it's still pretty I would say it's fair. So Susie, how did the public react to this proposed new policy of making a stricter no-show cancellation policy?
In the fall of last year, Metro went out to the public in a series of 3 workshops, and we found that 58% of the participants rated the policy as positively, and the concerns that were found were more about the making sure that the procedure was fair for charging someone with a no-show or late cancellation.
Can you tell me how your institute did this research and how you do research normally?
Sure. We went out and looked at peer agencies across the country.
So that means you looked at other transit agencies the same size?
Yes, same size, large urban transit agencies. They had stricter no-show policies, and they all had a late cancellation policy. And so what we did is we took those policies and we took the METROLift actual data and we ran the policies against METROLift data to see what the impact would be to the riders. So we presented our research to Metro, and they decided on a stricter no-show and late cancellation policy based on our data. And what the new policy that they decided on, what it achieves is the goal of balancing quality of service with sustainability of service, and by increasing the productivity of the service and also increasing the on-time performance of the service for the rider.
Susie, what's the goal in terms of how much you want to improve the on-time performance with these new policies?
New York City Transit actually puts out a survey once a year, and they found that of the large urban transit agencies, that the no-show rates between 1 and 7.5%, and Metro's at the high end. So we've estimated with this new policy that the no-show rate will drop between 4 and 5%, and that's the goal.
Okay, thank you so much for being with us, Susie.
Thank you.
We need to take a little break now, but when we come back, we'll tell you exactly how these new policies work, what's considered a no-show, and how late can you cancel without a penalty. Answers right after this.
We're powering possibilities, and in Houston, we are moving at the speed of light.
How exactly will the new no-show and late cancellation policy work? Here to tell us the details is Michael Andrade, Director of Paratransit Services and Operations here at Metro. Thank you so much, Michael, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so what exactly is a no-show?
A no-show is when a customer has a scheduled pickup time, let's say 8 o'clock in the morning. The driver has between 8 and 8:30 to arrive. If the driver arrives between that time of 8 and 8:30, that's our on-time window, and the driver and the customer do not make contact and the customer does not ride, that's considered a no-show.
Okay, if the customer calls the driver or calls METROLift dispatcher and says, I can't make it, something came up, or I'm not feeling well, within that 30-minute window, is that a no-show?
If there's an emergency situation that comes up that's not the customer's fault, that just comes up, maybe the customer doesn't feel well, there's something wrong with their equipment and they're not able to come out, we're going to be working with those customers and that will be considered a no-show excused.
Now, how late is too late to cancel a ride?
So right now what we have is what we call a late cancellation. Okay. So if a customer has an 8 o'clock pickup in the morning, and let's say the customer calls us at 6:05 in the morning, our late cancellation is within 2 hours of the scheduled pickup time. So anything between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning would be considered a late cancellation. The reason that we use that time frame, industry standards show us during that time frame, we're able to best utilize the services we have out on the road. So we could use that ride for another customer.
And you just reroute the driver somewhere else? Then.
Absolutely. We're able to use that driver and that resource to pick up another customer that may need to be using that resource to get to an appointment.
Michael, it's sort of expensive, isn't it, to operate the service? I mean, Metro does it as a service, but it's not cheap to do, right?
Correct, and that's what we want to do, is just be mindful of the resources that we have, work with the customers that do have problems with their no-shows and their late cancellations. We're going to be having a policy administrator in-house that will be able to work with our customers and really find out what's going on with those customers that may be having issues.
Okay, so how many times can a customer be late or cancel before he or she gets dinged?
What we do with this new policy is that we have either a combination of 5 no-shows or late cancellations in a 1-month period. So if a customer has that where they're not able to make contact with the driver within the on-time window, or they have a late cancellation equaling 5 in 1 month, that person for that month would be in violation. But the first violation would be actually a warning letter that will go out to our customers advising them that they had in violation of that policy for the month. At that point, our policy administrator will reach out to that customer and actually talk to them, find out what's going on, and try to work with them to address that. Now, if the customer in the next month has any combination that equals 5 or more, then that will be the second violation. So then at that point, the customer would receive a 5-day suspension. But again,
that means for the next 5 days you cannot make a reservation.
that's a good question. What we'll do is the following month, we're going to be sending a letter out to them and reaching out to them the first part of that month. So they actually have over 30 days before the actual suspension will come into effect. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure it's valid and we want to make sure we're working with them. So
like
there
if they
is
have a really important doctor's appointment they have to get to, they can plan it because the suspension doesn't start immediately, right?
Exactly, and there is an appeals process in place. So if a customer feels like the cancellation wasn't their fault or there was something else going on, we have that policy administrator will be able to work with them and actually adjust things if we need to.
Okay, so Michael, what happens if the third month they also have, it has to be 3 consecutive months, right? So third month, 5 violations.
That's another good question. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but what we look at is in a 12-month calendar period, customers that have violations, they could have a violation the first month, have nothing going on in the second month, and the third month they could be in violation again. But to answer your question, on the third violation, that goes up to 10-day suspension, and so on and so forth until we get to 20 days, and it's capped at 20 days. So we don't want to be punitive. We want to work with our customers.
By making the policy, the no-show and late cancellation policy stricter, you're really making the service more efficient, is that right?
If a driver pulls up to a location and is waiting for a customer that really doesn't need the ride, and you have other customers aboard, those customers are actually waiting to get to their appointment. So it really impacts other customers that are on the bus and the customers that the driver hasn't even picked up down the line. So it's a domino effect that we see that actually impacts the on-time performance.
Now, if someone finds out that he or she needs to cancel, there are 3 ways to do it, right?
Right.
What are those?
The first way is they could call into our automated system, which is the Max IVR, and they don't have to talk to anyone. They actually do it automated. And the next way is to do it Max IVR Web or Max Web, where they're able to go in on the internet and cancel their rides. Or they can call into our dispatch center and actually cancel their rides at 713-225-0410.
Michael, when a customer reaches the maximum limit of violations, let's say reached 5 in a month, will he or she get a pop-up notice on the computer or a little email as they're trying to make the reservation saying, sorry, you can't do this because you've reached your maximum?
What we're going to be doing as our policy administrator is going to be reaching out to our customers, giving them a call, sending letters to let them know that they are in violation. But the only time a pop-up will actually show up is if they're trying to schedule a trip within that suspension period.
And Michael, in the surveys that Metro did, the majority of people, 60-something%, right, said they wanted policies to be stricter and right?
Correct, and working with our customers and going out in the community, working with our partners, they actually see a need for a stricter policy because, again, the on-time performance is a very big issue. We want to keep the service moving.
And when does all this go into effect?
It's going to be going into effect on June 1st of this year. And again, we're going out into the community. We've had 3 meetings so far with our community to let them know that it's coming and these are the changes that are going to happen. And we've had a lot of favorable feedback from our community.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us, Michael.
Thank you.
Good luck with the new policies.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's all for this edition of Metro Matters. Be sure to join the conversation on our blog at ridemetro.org. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'm Mary Sitt. Thanks for watching.